As the bangers bang, we reconvene here on a suddenly not so casual free Friday night, November 5th, 2021. It is college football week 10 knowledge for college. It is Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle riding the wave we got out of the water. It is the Lock of the Rock, Lock of Gibraltar, rejoining us again. And it is my co-host, The Gun, Guns Picks, week 10, top 12 plays. We are going straight business. Guns Picks, how are you feeling on this beautiful evening, my friend, my sir, my consigliere of greatness?
Hey, listen, we finished 3-2 on the show yesterday, but I want to digress because the GPO Lock crew, my October was absolutely electric, plus 16 units. I was 28-18, which is about a little over 60% for the premium plays. So I gotta help the show, though. We gotta help the show. That's what I'm gonna do today. That's what I'm gonna do now. So let's get it going. Let's go. How you feeling, LOG?
I'm feeling not quite as good as your October, but I think it's a good time to buy LOG's plays. Let's see what we can do. We've had a couple bad weeks on the show in a row. Arizona State kept me from profitability last week. We're right there. We got a good card coming up this week, though.
Without question, and we have an alignment play to start the card, 12 p.m. ACC football, Lock of the Rock. UNC has burned us time and time again last week on the 4-yard line to close the game. It was torturous. I think we might bounce back this week. Wake Forest, number 9 in the country, comes in here, UNC leg -2.5, after beating them last year in a game that totaled over 100 points. Lock of the Rock, an official play.
I love Sam Hartman, the quarterback for Wake Forest, and I like this Wake Forest team. It's been impressive what they've done so far, but I love UNC here. I absolutely love UNC here. I was on them last week, as you mentioned, torturous loss. When I look at this spot and how they match up versus UNC, though, first of all, metrically speaking, power rating standpoint, I make the game -5. That's validated by S&P Plus. They have the game at -4. So getting this favored under a field goal, I absolutely love at home. This really comes down to the UNC offense for me. They've been rolling. They outgained Notre Dame last week. They outyard per played Notre Dame last week. They got the run game going. Sam Howell's finally playing up to that caliber, or up to that talent level. And when I look at the other side of the ball, Wake's offense has been special, but they haven't played anybody. UNC's defense has played far below their talent and their potential all year, but athletically speaking, it should still be the absolute best defense that Wake has seen this year. So there's a lot that I like here. I've been rooting for Wake all year, but I think they get knocked off this week. I like UNC under a field goal here, and I believe we might have some alignment here.
Guns Picks, an official play.
Yes, it's an official play. I'm on the same side as you. This is going to be one of my top plays. I've already issued it to GPO Lock, and I'm going to issue it on the show for a freebie for everyone to enjoy. Listen, you got to look at this spot. It's the old-fashioned ranked team versus an unranked team, where the unranked team is the favorite. The favorite is correct on this side. Now, UNC, they played a tough game on the road against Notre Dame, but they played enough to cover. They lost that cover because they just were a little bit outside on the 3-yard line. You know, it's been a tough season for UNC, but they do play well at home. They have a plus 123 net yard average at home, and they average 5.7 yards per carry. Now, with Wake Forest, they have a high volatile offense. They like to score points, as you saw against Army, where they scored about 1 million in that game on both sides. Actually, both teams covered the total on their own. Look, Wake Forest getting ranked at 8. That's going to really get stuck in their heads, especially with them as a dog. I think the public is going to really buy on them. They've only beat UVA. That's it. That was their best win of the season. They played this absolutely weak schedule. Plus, you got to look at the matchup here. Home team in this spot is 6-1 against the spread, straight up, and in this matchup. Also, you got to look at Wake Forest. They haven't played that well on the road. They actually have a -26 net yard average on the road. So this is a bad spot for them, especially with a UNC team that does have a very good offense, as we saw against Notre Dame last week. I think they're going to come in hungry. They're going to want to be a top 10 team, and this is the spot. They may be charging the field on this one, celebrating Mac Brown style. Let's go. UNC Tar Heels -2.5 is the play.
Staying at noon, out of conference, Liberty traveling on the road, catching Ole Miss in a sandwich spot in the middle of the SEC calendar. Liberty has burned me personally once. However, we are up 3 units betting them. They are consistently inconsistent, which we love to see. Lock of the Rock, please tell us what.
I've got Liberty plus 10 here. To your point, Shark, very weird team to cap. I think they lost outright as a 31-point favorite and a 27-point favorite this year. There's a lot of plus 10 out there. There's a lot of plus 9.5. I like either. I was fortunate to get the 10, I think, a couple days ago. And the reason why, you got Hugh Freeze coming home, of course. Liberty should be up for this. Liberty is a talented team. Very electric offense, a top 10 potentially draft pick at quarterback and Malik Willis. Talent is there, but it's more of an Ole Miss fade than it is a Liberty buy. This Ole Miss team has just been running through the gauntlet in the SEC. They lose to Auburn last week. This is a flat spot where it absolutely means nothing at this point in the season for them to win this game. So I don't know if you see a highly motivated Ole Miss team to take on Liberty here. And then outside of that, this team's banged up. Corral, best player, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, is gimping around. He's limping around, I should say. And then he's got nobody to throw to. All his wide receivers are out. He's throwing to walk-on wide receivers. He's throwing to walk-on tight ends. They're banged up. I just don't see this as a spot where they rally the troops and have a truly inspired effort. So I like catching 10 points here with Liberty.
Yeah, no disagreement from me there. I'm going to my first official plays. We're going 3 p.m. in the Sun Belt. We're taking the aforementioned Louisiana Monroe on the road, plus 3.5. People may say, why? This is why we talk about it. 2 games in conference on the road this year. They got blown out twice at Coastal Carolina and App State. The class of the Sun Belt. This is not representative whatsoever. You go to the other side of this game. Texas State is 2-0 ATS at home in conference, both as an underdog. First time laying, I think it matters. ULM got absolutely smacked in the face last year by Texas State at home in a COVID-sanctioned no fan environment. ULM was noteworthy. They were down last year. They have come back. They're much better at home, but I think this environmental shift really will happen. Key numerical split here. Texas State laid 1.5 points on the road last year, only 3.5 here. So again, I talk about this all the time. You lay 1.5 at home. It should be 4 on the road. It should be 4.5 coming back, particularly off a blowout. It's shortening up. It's a revenge game. It's a complete environmental shift. Second one, we're taking South Alabama for the second week in a row. A revenge game at Troy. Troy is in an awful sandwich spot off a cover at Coastal Carolina and 2 road games coming home. They also are in the first game of a 3-game homestand, playing Louisiana Lafayette next week and App State the following week. So if there's any bigger trap on the board, somebody's got to call me and tell me. This is probably the biggest spot in the biggest trap spot in the entire card. South Alabama has not traveled particularly well as a favorite in conference, but again, environmental shift, short line dog on the road in a revenge game. Great spot here. Sun Belt duo, Louisiana Monroe plus 3.5. USA, not the country. South Alabama, 3:30 p.m. Tulsa plus 22.5 at Cincinnati. The gun with an official.
Look, I need to talk to. Actually, I want to talk directly to Locke at Gibraltar. I want you to tell me what Cincinnati is ranked after the first session of the college football playoff.
What was that?
It doesn't matter what they're ranked, because guess what? Tulsa hasn't played anybody. Yes, they beat Notre Dame. That's my team. I don't care about that, but I'm looking at a overinflated line in this spot. Now, Tulsa, if you check the matchups, they've played each other 5 times since 1997. Granted, Tulsa just joined the conference, but there hasn't been a game where the spread of the game hasn't been 10 points or more. Never. And also, you got to look at this as a revenge spot for Tulsa in this spot. They played each other in the AAC championship last year, and Tulsa was a 14-point dog, and they lost by 3. Also, you got to look at Tulsa as far as you want to go against the spread. I'll give you trends. 19-8 against the spread as an away dog, and 9-0 against the spread versus ranked opponents. Tulsa plays up to the opponents, and you know why they play up to the opponents, because they go flat the week before. They played Navy and lost outright as a double-digit favorite. I mean, I can just give you the scenario. You want me to give you stats all day? I'm not going to have to give you stats because Tulsa actually plays better on the road than they do home. Go look it up yourself. This is a absolute lock of the decade. I'm not going to say that, but it is a lock on this one. I'm going to give you Tulsa plus 22.5. And that is going to be one of my premium plays. If you smell what the Golden Hurricanes are cooking.
Fire take. And we're staying with the Shark. Penn State minus 10 on the road in the Big Ten, traveling here to Maryland. And there's a lot of dynamics here to buy. Great stuff coming off an L3, but really kind of a misrepresentative L3. When you lose to Ohio State on the road and cover, and you lose at Iowa in a backdoor when your quarterback goes down, you're not really falling off the grid. You're just getting in some tight windows against good teams and not running particularly well in terms of variance. The third loss was a sandwich game in between those two road games against Illinois at home, a total trap letdown environment. This is a revenge game. Penn State did get hammered at home in the COVID year last year by 16 points against Maryland. It was a 40-point delta as they laid 24, so it was a 40-point gap off the spread. So when you lay 10 on the road after a 40-point gap at home, it's speaking to strength, even though it might be sort of short versus a 24 coming on the road. You look back at what Maryland did in the home opener in conference against Iowa. Iowa beat them down 51-17 on a -3. Maryland has been bad at home in conference, much better on the road. Revenge game, L3, and that corollary stands for itself. Official, Penn State minus 10. Big 12 football, 3:30 p.m. Texas Christian University hosting Baylor +7. Lock of the Rock, an official.
Yeah, shout out LaDainian Tomlinson here. We're riding with the stinky Horned Frogs. This team has been abysmal. One of the most underperforming teams, I think, outside of actually another team we're on, Guns and I, in UNC. Like, this should have been a team that maybe was vying for a Big 12 here. When you look at the talent that they brought back, they have NFL talent on defense, and the offense has been humming. The reason I like them here, A, it is a bit of a Baylor fade. I think they're very overvalued. But B, it's really the emotional spot for TCU with Patterson, leaving the program this week. Now, if you read reports about what's going on down there, he's still involved. He's still in the building this week, helping with the game plan. He's beloved down there. If you don't get an inspired effort here, then this group just doesn't have a pulse. They don't have a heartbeat. I think this is a rally of the troops effort, and you should see their best defensive effort of the year. The other thing, as I'm watching the market movement, I don't believe in watching what other people bet, but I think there's some strong indicators here. Every time this game got flipped from 6.5 to 7, it took a lot of sharp action, which brought it right back down to 6.5. So I think that's telling you about who the smart money is on. Now, you should cap yourself. You don't do what everybody else does, but I like the market indicators here. I think we're screaming for a nice TCU short loss or potentially an emotional upset win.
Yeah, speaking of market indicators, we're going to the border war. Colorado State at Wyoming. Official play from the Shark, -3.5 Colorado State. This is one of the biggest rivalries in college football. Of course, it's not that well known as it is very regional. Shout out to my man Champ up there in Wyoming. I'm sure he'll be ready for this. But if you really start to look at Wyoming is 4-4 on the campaign straight up. They started out the season 4-0, but that was 4-0 against some of the absolute bottom feeders of FBS football. Since then, particularly in conference, they have gotten cleaned up, road and home. They cannot score the football, and the line confirms. Last year, Wyoming laid 3.5 points on the road in Colorado State. They come home. Not only do they not lay points or move it up like it should, it goes the complete opposite direction in the revenge game. Colorado State comes in here laying 3.5. Colorado State comes in here functioning well off home losses going on the road. They did lose last week in a backdoor effort against the perpetually solid to above average Boise State road team. All boxes checked. Revenge game. Line number coming towards the team that beat them last year. Wyoming is 4-1 last 5 in this matchup. And the last time they played in Wyoming 2 years ago, Wyoming laid 5 points. All numbers and narratives confirmed. Official -3.5. A collaboration play from the man on my left and the man on my right. Purdue +3 fading the number 3 team in the country, Michigan State Spartans. They backdoored Michigan last week. Can they back it up? Guns picks. Official.
Yeah, you got to believe. I mean, Purdue might be dream killers because I think this is going to be a Purdue play on this one. I mean, Michigan State did beat Michigan, a top 10 team at the time. Coming off that win, 37-33. But if you look at it a little bit closer and you actually look into the statistics of the game, Michigan State has kind of been lucky. They've actually lost a lot of net yard battles, and in this one they lost by minus 157, which would just lead me to believe Michigan should have won that game outright and very easily. We also gave up 552 yards in that game. 406 of those are on the pass. Now let's take it back and just look at good passing teams that they've gone against. When they go against a good passing team, that's where they have their troubles. And guess what Purdue does? They can't run the ball. They pass the ball. That's all they do. You got Purdue coming off a win as a 7.5-point dog to Nebraska. I don't know how that happened. Nebraska stinks. And then they got, coming off a loss to a Wisconsin team that probably is going to win the West, in my opinion. Wisconsin's on fire, but I digress. So you got Purdue in this spot. They actually have a plus 157 net yard average versus Minnesota, plus 5 net yard average versus Notre Dame. Those were their losses. And then granted, Wisconsin beat the doors off of them, but really that was the most definitive statistical loss that they've had all year. Also, you got to look at Purdue, 4-1 against the spread versus Michigan State. And the home team in this situation is 4-1 straight up in this matchup. This pretty much just tells me Purdue is going to play up to Michigan State, and all they have to do is stop Kenneth Walker III. Nobody's done it yet. I think Purdue can. So give me Purdue +3 as the play.
Lock of the rock. Confirm.
Yeah, I mean, on that last point, why I think they can stop Kenneth Walker is a few things. I got a few other data points to add to Gunn's take. Purdue is top 25 in rushing success and EPA per play. Now, it's not an explosive D line, even though they've got first rounder Carl Loftus on that line. But it's good, it's solid. But why I think they can really slow down Kenneth Walker is Jalen Naylor. Towards the end of that Michigan game was in a cast, the wide receiver for Michigan State. It does not look like he's going to play. Purdue's going to key in on Walker anyway, but without Naylor, they can key in even more. I like them to load the box and just sell out against Walker. Now, a few other points I like. Obviously, it's a tough spot for Michigan State coming out that emotional win. But as Gunn said, if you peel the onion a bit on Michigan State, if you look at post-game win-loss probabilities, they should be a 2-loss team right now, maybe even a 3-loss team. Michigan on the road in Michigan State's backyard has a 16-point lead with the ball in the fourth quarter. They're about to go night-night in that game. They fumble the ball with their backup quarterback. For some reason, Harbaugh's got him in their own red zone. The game flips on a dime. Michigan State's unbelievably overvalued. I'm higher than most on Purdue. I'm lower than most on Michigan State. So you're giving me a field goal here. I love it.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, we say this every week. I said it last week that the undefeated teams were going to go down. We were 2-0 in those environments. SMU did lose, and San Diego State did lose. We usually have a pretty good feel for this. I am not on this. I will say I love you guys and I respect you guys. MSU has done this week after week. They just cover these short lines on the road, and sometimes it can't go that way. So I'm rooting for you. Nothing official from me there. A short line favorite myself when playing NC State -3 at Florida State. This is a great fade of Florida State off a really tight non-cover backdoor special at Clemson last week. The ultimate sandwich spot for Florida State, who has played 4 straight competitive games after starting the season really lackluster in 4 games. They are too hot, and the sandwich spot exists in a road should have been covered against Clemson, and they play the U at home next week. You look at the other side of this, NC State on the road off of a home victory against Boston College in, I believe, the conference opener going back to early October, 33-7 on a -3, equally short and unadjusted. I think it's just how they function in this environment. They come off a road win, they feel momentum, they bring it on the road. I think the letdown comes in the second game on a road sequence, which could come next week against Wake. But the official play exists, NC State -3-1 unit. 7:30 p.m., Pac-12 football. Speaking of potentially short lines, if the lock of Gibraltar is taking a public side, you guys better listen up here. Oregon -6.5. Tell us what's going on.
Whew, man, on the surface, I saw this line. I saw Washington under a touchdown dog to Oregon. Give me Washington. The branch contrarian in me absolutely loves that. And then I looked under the hood. This is one of the biggest mismatches, X's and O's, metric-wise, in terms of an individual matchup on the entire board this week. And what I mean by that specifically is Washington's defense, which is just abysmal. They are bottom 10 in the nation in every single rushing stat that matters. They are getting bullied by everybody. And if you look at this Oregon team closely, this ain't Chip Kelly, right? This isn't finesse, get it out in space. They play bully ball. Cristobal is an offensive lineman himself. He's recruiting an offensive line. They tote the rock. They pound it downhill. So I just see no way Washington stops this offense. Conversely, Washington's offense has been abysmal. I mean, this offensive coordinator hire, you're looking at potentially the worst hire in college football. I mean, they're running Stone Age type offense up there. Oregon's defense is great. And listen, Oregon should be motivated no matter what, because they're playing for college football chances college football playoff spot every single week. But, I think Jimmy likes comments about not recruiting the same type of players as Oregon because Washington's looking for a higher academic standard. That should give the Ducks a little bit of extra motivation here. Not that they need it, but I like the way that this matchup favors Oregon on the ground. So I'm going to lay it on the road in what should be a raucous environment, though, for Washington for sure.
Yeah, no disagreement there. And my final play, we're going Florida Atlantic University hosting Marshall. Situational environment here. Revenge game, lost 20-9 last year on the road. We always talk about line scaling. This is a very noteworthy one. Marshall did lay 16 points last year at home to FAU, and now they open up here at -1.5. It's ultra short, and it also correlates to how Marshall has functioned in conference on the road as a favorite specifically. Their covers have usually come on dog positions, and FAU here is really just in a nice spot to clean up a revenge spot on a very inconsistent team. Marshall is one of those teams similar to Liberty and some of the MAC teams and some of the low-level Mountain West and Sun Belt team, very inconsistent. And of course, we try to target consistency to the inconsistency. FAU +1.5 official, finishing by 6-pack of picks. 10 p.m., Nevada -11, a revenge game against San Jose State, who seem to have cleaned up a pandemic season last year. Definitely not backing it up in 2021. Guns, picks, and official play.
I think people misjudge San Jose State. I mean, they did clean up, like you said, on a COVID year with no crowds and everything like that, and they did. So it is a revenge spot, and I'll get to that in a second. So you got to look at a good home team versus a bad away team of how they play. Nevada is a great home team. They put up 508 yards per game at home, and they only give up 355 yards. You know what that equates to? Plus 153 net yard average. Let's turn it around to the other side of the spectrum. San Jose State as a road team, they put up 296 yards of total offense and give away 383 with a -87 net yard average. And you know what Nevada likes to do? They like to pass the ball. San Jose State is 72nd in the pass of giving up yards. And we got a Carson Strong, probably the top quarterback prospect going to the NFL next year with an 8.1 yards per attempt and a 71.1 completion rate. Also, you got to look at Nevada at home. They are absolute monsters. They dominate at home. Nevada is 9-2 against the spread as a home favorite, 15-3 at home versus conference opponents, and 8-1 against the spread at home versus the Spartans. So with all that being said, plus you got to look at the revenge spot in this situation. San Jose State beat them 30-20 last year, but you got to look at I went and looked at the box score. San Jose State had a kick return as one of their scores, and also Nevada drove down the field, got to the 1 yard line, fumble. San Jose State recovers and drives down the field again to score another touchdown. 14-point swing on absolute fluke stuff. We were just talking about this earlier about fluke plays. That is an absolute fluke. Don't think Nevada is going to just run the table all the way through the Mountain West Championship. I want Nevada, and I don't care if you're giving me -11 because my line is -17. Give me Nevada, the Wolfpack, all day long.
Final play from the gun, Arizona State, first half, -5.5. Burned Lock of the Rock extensively last week. He is in full regret. He has been thinking about this all week. He might have to put his headphones off for this take. Guns picks. Herm Edwards and the boys coming off of an absolute insult, a turnover fest in the first half last week. What happens this week?
All right, I'm just looking at that as a pure USC fade. Let me tell you why. Do you know what USC lost in their offense? They lost their guy, the guy that their sole guy that scored all the points for him. His name is Drake London. Drake London broke his ankle. He's out for the season. He had to have surgery on that ankle. He had 88 catches, over 1,000 yards. He was probably scoring 40 to 45% of the time of that total offense. When he came out of the game flipped. They were up 28-7 when he came out of the game. And it was a 7-point game to Arizona. That team stinks on ice. Now you have Arizona State, and I know Luka Gibraltar holds his heart for this one. A lot of fluke turnovers. I think Herm Edwards is going to have that team kind of firing on all cylinders, especially against a conference opponent. And I'm not going to take the game because I am worried about turnovers, of course. I just think Arizona State is a good first half team. Listen, they actually beat teams easily in the first half. The only time they didn't was Washington State last week. Don't think Herm Edwards won't have these guys riled up for this game. And you have a USC team that's going to have to try to run the ball. I don't know what they're going to do. They don't have any receivers. So with all that being said, I'm only going to look at the first half of this play. It's -5.5. It's under a touchdown. I think they'll be easily up 2 scores. Maybe USC drives for another one, but it doesn't matter at that point. I don't care if it's 7. Give me Arizona State first half -5.5 as the play.
That'll wrap it up. Week 10 knowledge for college. It is Sharky Waters Nation. Ride the waiver, get out of the water. Lock of the Rock and Guns picks. My 6-pack of picks will be posted separately. ULM +3.5, USA +4, Penn State -10, Colorado State -3.5, NC State -3, and FAU +1.5. Consensus plays from the Gun and the Lock. UNC -2.5 at noon, and consensus 3:30. Fading number 3 team in the country, Michigan State +3, Purdue. We are wrapping it up. We thank you guys for listening, interacting, desiring, and dominating always. Free Friday, November 5th, 2021. Guns picks, final words, close them out, and we'll see you guys next week, 7, 8, 9, or 10 p.m.
I just want to congratulate this crew on full alignment, because we had Fresno State last week. Easy, feet up on the desk, hands behind our heads. That was an easy win. I want you to join. I don't want to give any plugs to GPO Lock. I want you to like, share, retweet, share this show if you like it, because we're just giving you sharp stuff for absolutely free. We just want to grow the channel. We want to grow this show, and we just want to give you absolute electric content every week. So thanks, everybody. And as always, let's keep dancing.
Boiler up, baby. Boiler up.